Okay, now on the other line. Okay, I'm just getting the tape machine to work here, and we are taping according to this thing, but we have a backup with Mary Ellen. Okay, all right. First, I want to pass out the agenda. Okay, here's an agenda for everybody. Okay, we need a roll call of the commission. Oh, I'm calling the meeting to order.
It's not 5 o'clock.
Oh, it's not 5 o'clock?
No.
Oh.
No, it's five up.
4:56.
Oh, okay. Well.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I'll call it to order in a couple minutes then. Okay, so we got that. Okay. All right. Got warm today. So that's not bad. A little over $5,000 to fix your dog's 2 hips.
No, two legs and a hip. He looked at the x-rays for the hip and he doesn't think there's much work to do there.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, that's good.
yeah. This guy's resume is actually pretty good. But it turns out everyone was putting us off till July, and then we discovered that it's been put off, no surgeries, till July, and that's why there's a whole bunch of people before us. Whereas Maine, this guy's been working all along.
Yeah, well, they're a little more spread out up there.
It's in Norway, Maine.
Yeah.
7 hours from here.
Yeah, that's good, John. The poor dog. What the coyote attacked this dog?
What?
Yeah, the coyote got my dog.
Yeah.
The little red one.
Did they kill it?
No. Tore 2 knees and a hip. And she can't walk. I mean, she's walking, but not well anymore. I was a mile in the woods. I had to carry her out. She weighs 60 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that wasn't easy. I'm getting old.
Over the back?
No, she wouldn't let me. She squirmed too much. I had to carry her with her legs hanging straight down. If I tipped her up at all, she freaked out. So I had to carry her like this.
Okay, John. What time we got?
4:58.
58.
Oh, 4:58. Okay.
There's a clock on it.
Oh, yeah, but okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Anyhow, we've been hunting for a surgeon for weeks. And we finally got one in Norway, Maine.
A veterinarian, yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is, we were there. They had Ann's name still, and they said your dog would be 43 years old.
In human years?
Yes. No. That's how old the dog. The last time we were there was 40 years ago. But they still had her name in the computer. They said, "Are you Ann Flower from North Conway?" And Ann was like, "Well," and she said, "You have a dog, Wesley?" "Yeah, that's me." Anyhow, it's kind of funny.
Okay. We 5 o'clock? 4:50.
No,
No.
4:59.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Wait.
Close in on it.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes? Is that Mary Ellen?
Hi, Bob, it's Glenn, I'm here.
Oh, Glenn, okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, wait a second. We're getting ready. Another minute, less than a minute.
All right, I'll be here.
Okay.
You have 15 seconds.
15 seconds to countdown.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, huh?
Basics.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Okay, yeah, it's 5 o'clock. So I'm going to call the Park and Rec meeting to order. The first part of the business is Mary Ellen. Could you take a roll call or something to find out what commissioners are here? And for the first part of the meeting, I would like the commissioners to speak up. There are going to be a couple spots where other people are going to be also adding to this, but for the most part, everyone else has to wait until public comment. And whenever you have the public comment, please state your name, and so we have that for the record. Okay. Meeting was called to order. We're going to read and approve the previous meeting minutes. Oh, the roll call. Oh, yes, the roll call. Okay, Mary Ellen, go ahead.
Bob Dunn, I know you're here. John Flower.
Yes.
Myself, Miss Garvin. Tim Gavin.
Yeah, I'm here, Mary Ellen.
Okay. Glenn is here. Brendan McKeever.
Here?
Okay. And is Don Bugbee there?
I'm here.
Yeah, Don's here. And also Mr. Griswold is here as just,
Visitor.
yeah, physically he's here. Okay, I think we've got, what's that now?
Yes. The Greg Hack.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, later on, Greg Hack is going to be speaking a little bit, and Macaulay, I believe, was the other guy. Yeah, but when we get to that part, we'll go over that. Who's going to talk on that? Okay, can we please? I asked everyone to read the minutes very carefully because our March meeting we did not have a quorum. We have to go back and approve the minutes of February 17th. And as I noted, I had one comment on page 8 of that rather than saying the storage facility, they would have to cross onto other properties, it should have read have to cross onto Haines Park property. Got that, Mary Ellen? Hello, Mary Ellen?
Got it.
Okay, yeah, I sent that around to everybody anyway. Okay, as far as that's the only comment I had on the February 17th meeting. Anyone else have anything else to say about it, commissioners?
No.
No.
Okay, would somebody please make a motion and somebody second it to approve these? Yeah, you.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Missy.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear, I only heard a couple of ayes on that end.
Brendan McKeever said that.
Oh, okay,
Hi, Tim.
okay,
Mary Ellen.
all right. Anyone opposed? No? And
Abstain.
anyone
Abstain.
abstaining?
You.
No?
I was
No.
not present at the meeting.
Then you abstain.
Oh, okay, I abstained.
You were at that meeting. You were not at the March meeting. You were at that meeting. John Flower, in the February meeting, you were there. Okay, all right, so what is, you gonna change what is it? Your favor? Okay, yeah. All right, the next one to read, that's been read, and we're going to find out if we have approval, was the meeting of March 5th. Now, that was the one we didn't have a quorum, just myself, Mary Ellen, and Brendan were there. And I read those, Brendan and Mary Ellen, do you have any comments? I thought they were fine. Huh?
I don't.
No? Could you, Brendan, you?
I don't have a comment on it.
Okay, all right, so could one of you make a motion to approve, please?
I motion to approve. I move to approve.
Okay, second?
Mary Ellen will second.
Okay, all in favor? Because there's a lot of abstainers because they weren't there. We'll get to that in a minute. But Mary Ellen, Brendan, and myself, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And anyone opposed? No. And how about who's abstaining? The people who were absent, I guess. Who would be John?
Obviously.
Missy, Tim, Glenn. Okay. All right. So those meeting minutes were approved. We're on to the last one. Was the the special meeting that hit after this virus that we had. That was Wednesday, April 15th. I read those minutes. I don't have anything else to add. Does any other commissioner have anything else to add or subtract?
No.
No? Anybody else?
No.
No? Okay, would someone make a motion to approve, please?
I make a motion to approve, Glenn.
Okay.
Glenn's talking.
Okay, and who, someone second, please?
Mary Ellen.
Okay, okay. So, all those approve, please say aye.
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 Okay, okay, anybody, not approve? No, anybody abstain? No, because everybody was here at that meeting. All right, so that one's been approved too. On to the next thing, the director's report. Don, you ready to go?
Yeah. Mary Ellen, one quick thing. Do you realize that Missy's on the line now too?
No, I don't, so thank you.
You are?
Aye.
Okay.
Hey, Misty.
Okay.
Hi, Betsy.
So,
Summer program update. I reluctantly have to report last week that the day camp, any tennis camps, basketball camps for O-line Parks and Recreation this summer have been canceled. The UK soccer camp that we have scheduled in August, I have decided to evaluate that closer to the date to see how it's all going. And this all this information was discussed with the Parks and Rec Commission, First Selectman, and the District 18 Superintendent. We're in agreement. Lifeguards and parking lot attendants. Parking lot attendants are on duty at White Sand Beach and Haines Park. Lifeguards most likely will be starting next week. I'm trying to access and assure I have the latest compliance guidelines for the lifeguards, but we should have all that together and be up and running by next week. The facilities are open. White Sand Beach is open and active. White Sand Beach Association has been paving all of the roads for the last week or so, and we're working through all the situations that has created. Haines Park, the beach area is open. We have finally received the good water test results at Haines Park, so the bathrooms will start to be open by tomorrow. Cross Lane facility has been basically closed for activity, as well as Town Woods Park. And we also got a satisfactory water test finally for Town Woods Park water as well. And if you remember, we struggled with both those places, Haines Park and Town Woods Park, last summer extensively. So we're back in business water-wise. And that's it.
okay, that's it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next, we go to the Haines Park bathroom project update. Don, you're liaison for that. Go ahead.
Okay, where we are today, there was mandatory site visits on May 27th and May 28th. There were 8 potential bidders there. By June 10th, they have to submit any questions they might have on the plans and specs. They submit those to the Selectman's office. By June 17th, all the questions will be answered and provided to all the bidders. On July 1 is scheduled to open the bids, 2 p.m. at the O-Line Town Hall in the meeting room. And on July 17th, they're hoping to award a bid to the contractor selected. If that's the case, on August 1st, they'll start construction with a no greater than 90-day completion schedule, and that will bring it to November 1st at the latest. All of that information, including the RFQ, RFP instructions to the contractors, the Haines Park restroom drawings, and the Haines Park restroom specs, and all that information is located on the Town of O-Line's website. That's the schedule.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Don on that? No, not hearing any questions. We'll move on. Now, the next one is the summary of May 15th informal meeting concerning the marine facility proposal at 176 Boston Post Road. Okay, Mr. Griswold had asked me if we could have an informal meeting there with some of the key people involved, and we decided to have a social distancing meeting outside at 176 Boston Post Road on May 15th. I invited Tim Griswold, Greg Hack, Don Bugby, and John Flower to join me at that particular meeting. I believe it started at 1:30. A neighbor that lives near 176 Boston Post Road, and a neighbor by the name of Tom, right? I don't know his last name.
Tom Letty.
Tom Letty, and he saw you, Don, and saw a little group and asked if he could come over and listen in to find out what was going on. Is that correct?
He had contacted me and was interested in what's going on because he was unaware of stuff. So I told him we had that meeting there, and that would be a starting point for him.
Okay. All right. So he attended, and also a Michael Ferguson, who I asked him, you know, what was his name? He's a resident of Essex, who's also one of the people on the Old Line Rowing Association. He's the treasurer, and he also pointed out that he was one of the 6 partners in the LLC that was formed to buy that property. I started it off by trying to summarize that the 176 Boston Post Road project is a landlocked property. Marine facility would be considered commercial, and the policy of the Old Line Park and Recreation Department is that no commercial businesses are allowed to use park property on a regular basis. On the special use spaces, they can fill out forms, whatever, and could have a one-day thing out there or whatever. You know, we always look at proposals, but you have to go through the that procedure and also prove that you have insurance. Now, I pointed out that allowing a commercial business to use park property on a regular basis would set a bad precedent. What would happen if for instance, a person bought one of those houses and had a kayak business and wanted to use Haines Park in order to access docks and so forth? That would be a bad precedent to set. Okay, the 24 boat plan for storage for 24 boats in that marine facility, that particular plan was unanimously opposed by the Park and Rec Commission. And at the time, at the last meeting that we had, we said, well, maybe if another plan submitted, it will be considered. Also, the Park and Rec Commission was not in favor of portaging the rowing shells from one end of the park to the other, to the docks. Now, Mr. Ferguson and Greg Hack were, I suppose, very disappointed by all this, and we started rehashing a lot of that history. John Flower was also there, and being a former building inspector and knowing a little bit about land use, added that he thought if it went on to zoning department. John, you want to say what you said at the meeting?
Right. Basically what I said is, I used the example of the fire department parking lot, that if, say, Judy Tooker or some other abutter to a fire department or any town property decided to build a garage and use that property as their access, that it would never be approved. And that barn building holds 33-foot boats, and as I mentioned last time, the property line is 24 feet away. So therefore, there's no way to remove the boat without crossing onto town property. So, not because of who they are, but because of what it is, it doesn't make any logical sense for any board to approve the use of town property for a property to function. And that was basically my discussion.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that if the committee or commission was aware of that, then I don't understand what gives them the authority to use the town property.
What commission are you referring to?
I guess who were they before, the zoning board or ZBA?
The ZBA, the Zoning Board
Right.
of Appeals, yes.
Right.
Okay,
And that's my only thought, that it doesn't make sense because they can't exit their building without using public property.
But I think the way that they approved it, they, under the condition that they would have to get a special permit and go to zoning, who would, I guess, be familiar
Right.
with
They-
those rules.
I would assume so.
Yes. Okay. Now, we went on, we were rehashing a lot of this same information for a while. And basically then, at one point, Tom, the neighbor, I'm sorry, what was his last name again?
Letty.
Tom Letty, who was there, stated that he supported rowing, but had observed over the years more and more rowing activities taking place, docks being moved closer to the swimming and beach area, and he felt that the rowers seemed to be slowly taking over more and more of the park. And this would really be significant, this marine facility at the opposite end of the park to the boathouse, that he was concerned as a neighbor, and he basically said, you know, he was happy he was there just to try and find out what was going on, and that, so he voiced some, you know, he was just very concerned about if there would be more and more activity there, because even though a lot of this individual rowing starts early in the morning, on a calm morning in the down by the lake there, he said he could practically hear the conversations of everyone, and you know, he was just concerned to have another place at the other end of the park, the south end of Route 1, he was concerned about all that. After a couple more attempts to have a discussion about moving forward and what we might consider by the Park and Rec would consider, I finally said, well, we're just throwing out ideas, but possibly a smaller scale to this project, and it would not be a commercial project, that maybe it could be just a private residence for the 6 partners, with the addition to the walkout basement area they have in that house, in addition to that for storage of shelves, and maybe would be able to exit, they would seem to be able to exit on their own property at 176 and not have to exit onto the Haines Park property. And, you know, maybe if there's 6 guys, maybe only 6 to 10 shelves, because I think Greg pointed out at least one member of their LLC had 2 boats. And maybe this scaled down project will be just 1 story with no big verandas around it, where they were designed in the rejected project by the Park and Rec to hold certainly a lot more than just 6 people. Or I remember when Greg Hack came to our December meeting, he and the LLC had purchased the property back in June, I believe, and Mr. Hack said that at the December meeting that it sold in about 4 days, and there are several interested people in buying it, and so they bought it. And then they finally came to the Park and Rec meeting in December to give us an idea of what they were proposing and what they wanted to do. Mr. Ferguson asked if the PRC would approve portaging the boats next to the wall of the neighbor's property that's between the parking lot at Haines Park and their house. And so that way they wouldn't have to walk on park property, because we were concerned there's a children's little playground there, there's other people just walking around and playing. In fact, the neighbor said, well, of course, real early in the morning, the little kids aren't out there playing, but by 8 or 9 o'clock, when they would be bringing boats back, that he was concerned because, kids just play and they go wild and they're not going to pay attention. I'm sure, of course, the responsible owners of the boats would pay attention, but he was concerned about that too. Okay, as far as using that property right next to the wall that leads to the parking lot, I asked who owns that, and they told me that the neighbor owned it. So I suggested that the LLC notify or ask permission of the neighbor if they could use that property to walk boats over. And I also suggested that they notify all the surrounding neighbors to find out how they felt about whatever the project's going to be in the future, to get some feedback. So basically, that's where we are on that, and I think that we're going to hear something from Greg a little bit later about an updated statement about the property. Does anyone have any questions? Any commissioners have any questions about what I just went over? The meeting.
No, I don't.
No. Oh, anybody out in the
I
meeting?
don't.
The meeting lasted almost an hour and a half, okay, that day. Okay, so that's where we were.
Bob.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
It's Brendan. I have questions for Mr. Hack, but I suppose that can wait.
Yeah, that can wait until.
I don't know if now.
Huh? That can wait. That can wait until Greg has some statements to make later in the agenda here under new business, okay?
Very good.
But,
Okay. Yep.
all right, okay, we'll move on. Some good news is that now that the governor is saying, has relaxing some of the rules as far as social distance, well, not social distancing, but as far as trying to open up the state again. Mr. Griswold and Don Bugby and I met yesterday to talk about what we may do to open up some of the parks for like limited recreational activities. We're going to put a formal report together tomorrow that we're all going to review, and then hopefully shortly thereafter we may be able to open these parks or semi-open these parks. The first thing that was discussed is that even though there's lots of room in some of the places, everyone should probably have masks with them and social distance while they're there. Now, of course, if you just isolate it on a certain part of Town Woods Park or whatever, and it's just you and a family member you're living with at this time, of course you don't have to be wearing masks or anything like that. But if you see people that you don't know that well, it'd be a good idea to stay at least 6 feet away. The first facility that we talked about was tennis. Now, we all agreed that tennis is certainly between two people that were living together would be perfectly okay, and we even said that maybe that if 4 people were to play doubles on any of the tennis courts, these tennis courts are across lane, and that's all our tennis courts, right? Just across lane. The school has some, but I don't think they're open yet. They're not. That the tennis courts at cross lane, people can play there. If you're going to play with people that you aren't living with, it'd be a good idea to make sure that they haven't been feeling sick and that okay, play tennis. Just try and stay away from one another. It's a non-contact type of sport, so we thought that would be okay to shortly open that up. As far as basketball is concerned, which is at the Haines Park and also down Cross Lane, we thought that, well, it's okay to shoot baskets or just play OUT or whatever, but no team activities or no physical contact. So that would mean, because that would be a little risky in this current environment that we have, that would mean that, we don't want anybody playing even one-on-one basketball or two-on-two, or certainly not a whole team playing basketball. So we considered that's probably okay too, as long as people adhere to smart practices there. Right, Don? Are you agreeing with that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, as far as Haines Park and Town Woods Park, we the three of us all agreed that if you were to walk around the park to get exercise, or run around the park, or go out in there and do some stretching exercises or exercising, that would certainly be okay. The other thing we talked about was how about lacrosse? How about soccer? Once again, we said that if you're just going to go out there and kick the soccer ball back and forth and not have big groups, no teams, no games, no physical contact, that would certainly be okay to just play it smart and practice your lacrosse or soccer out there. But no organized activities at all, especially no physical contact, and trying to be smart about social distancing. Okay, the playgrounds, which we have a playground at Haines Park, we have a playground at Townwoods Park, and there's also a playground down by Cross Lane. That, at this time, is still a no-no. Signs are going to be put out there saying that the playgrounds are closed. I think everyone is in agreement that, kids retouching surfaces, we don't want this thing to spread, this virus, and we have to play it smart. And for a community so far, I think we've been playing it pretty smart. So we have to ask, especially mothers and fathers, to make sure that their kids do not play on the playgrounds at this time. The bathrooms, as you heard Don, we finally got a clear water bill, and we still have the old bathroom at Haines Park. We have a bathroom at Townwoods Park, and we have a bathroom down White Sands Beach, and also we have some, I guess, Portage at Sound View. They're going to be cleaned on disinfected one time per day. And I assume that's in the morning, correct, Don? Mostly the time?
Usually, yeah.
It's usually in the morning, yes. Okay, so that's an update on that. And then we get to the rowing, okay? And as you're going to hear in a little bit later, we've kind of thought about some of the rules that we discussed last time, and you'll hear about it. But at this time, we would prefer, and we're going to, Don, myself, Tim Griswold are going to make it hopefully early next week, an appointment with the superintendent to discuss his feelings about opening up the entire boathouse and what will need to be done to ensure that it's safe, very safe practices. Mrs. Fuchs, who's the president of the Rowing Association, did send a memo to the superintendent, and who else got that one? The first selectman, selectman. I saw it later on that had a nice plan laid out to try and do this relatively safely, and that apparently she spoke to someone down at the in the state government that apparently had said that the type of program, a really reduced program just for adults that was being proposed, would be okay to open. Now we want to also get a little more information on that, I think, before we meet with Ian, especially if we can get something that written confirmation from the state that this would be an okay thing to do. So if we all agree early next week, then hopefully the boathouse will be opened up sometime later in the week to have limited activities under the supervision of the whoever's that's going to be responsible for overseeing what goes on there, to have at least one representative from their O-Line Rowing Association there to make sure everything's done safely and smartly. And so we'll discuss more about that at our meeting next week with the superintendent. And as far as cart topping boats, we're going to get to that next. Okay, anybody have any questions about what I've just gone over? Anyone,
No.
any commissioner have a question at this time?
No.
No, for me.
No, okay. I'm not hearing any questions. I'll move on to the next part of our agenda, Further ideas concerning the 15-foot rule for entrance and exit to Haines Park. Well, we've talked about that rule, and that we have come to a consensus that maybe before early in the morning, from sunrise to before 9 o'clock, that if people wanted to rowers wanted to car top their boat to the main parking lot, and especially being that I don't envision at this point with limited things going on, it will be that crowded, that, you know, people could continue to car top their shells down there, go out and practice, but then all cars and shells be removed from that parking lot by 9 o'clock. Okay, and so that's the one revision on that. We're concerned about what happens after 9 to sunset, because that's when I just passed the park. There were a good number of people at Haines Park swimming and walking around and picnicking or whatever. That we're concerned with what happens after 9 o'clock, because we would prefer not to have these larger 27-foot boats going through the park when Old Lyme residents are there just enjoying the park and doing all the different activities you can do with the park. So at least up to this point, we would prefer to have the shells, if there's an organized Old Lyme Rowing Association activity or program, that in that case, we would still prefer that the longer shells be brought in by the boathouse driveway to keep all that activity, the rowing activity, on that side of the park, which is approximately a third of the park. Now, we heard one consideration that well, maybe this is not going to be so easy to do if the gates were being closed, and someone would have to open the gate, and then once their activity was done, somebody would have to close the gate. Well, Don had an excellent suggestion. Don, can you speak to what your suggestion was on that?
I just thought that the gate going down towards the boathouse on their driveway should just be left open, so nobody has to worry about opening and closing their gate.
Okay, yeah, because
That's a good idea.
yeah, and that, and
Yeah.
anybody, yes, anybody else want to comment? It's hard to run this meeting with this way, but
Right.
go ahead.
No,
Anybody
I
else?
think that's a good idea to leave the gate open.
Yeah, because the gate to the main parking area is always left open, so it's not like we're closing down Haines Park once the sun sets. So it seemed like a reasonable idea to me, and Don and John Flower, who's here, and so anybody else like to comment about this revision to that 15-foot business?
Is this a time when the public could comment or not?
First the commissioners, please. I don't know who just talked there.
It was Glenn.
Okay, good. Yeah, commissioners. Yeah, commissioners.
Yeah.
Yeah, commissioners, please. Any more comments on that proposal?
Yeah, Bob, this is Tim.
Yes.
Is the time frame before 9 o'clock? Are you saying that we're proposing possibly letting the car top boats come in the main entrance and park in the parking lot, and if they are there past 9 o'clock, they need to go through the other access ways to go pick up the boat and put it back on top of the
No, preferably that wouldn't be the case, because when we had we've had discussions about this, I think there was general agreement that anyone that's a rower that happens to go early in the morning, sometime after sunrise, was generally agreeable that they would be gone from at 9 o'clock. That's when the public starts to use the park, and I think that was in general agreement. So we would hope that they wouldn't have to go pick up the boats over there. But
Okay.
I assume that, or I don't assume anything, because this is all like
kind of new stuff we're trying to do, but that most people would comply that are rowers to that 9 o'clock business, and that I guess if for some reason somebody didn't get out and load up their boats by 9 o'clock, most likely we prefer, especially prefer that they use the boathouse driveway. But I think there is general agreement, even with the rowers, that would be reasonable from sunrise to 9 o'clock. That they would comply with that. Now, in saying that, I believe there's a representative from the Old Lyme Rowing Association, Mr. McCauley, that may want to say a few words. Mr. McCauley, are you there?
I am. Hi, Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, so just for those who don't, can you hear me?
Yes, and just give your name, please, and your residence, and how you're associated with the Old Lyme Rowing Association.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, my name is Chris McCauley. I'm a 25-year resident of Lyme. I live on 57 Bill Hill, Lyme. I've been a member of OLRA for more than half the time I've been in town. I learned how to row in Haines Park. I'm not a former college rower. I'm not an athlete. I'm just an old guy who learned how to row in his 40s and is very passionate about it. I wrote a note to the Park and Rec Commission and Selectmen after the information was put out publicly about the new rules, and I don't know what you want me to summarize that, or I think you already, sounds like you've already discussed it and kind of come to
I was forwarded.
changes to
I
that,
was
so
forwarded
we probably don't need
that.
to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that my main point was simply the increase of having to increase traffic of going in and out of one driveway and in and out of another driveway to drop the boats off at the boathouse and then park the car over at the other parking lot was awkward at best and actually raised more safety concerns at worst. So I actually think that what's been described here in terms of the sunset to 9 a.m. And the car toppers, and there are not that many of us, to continue to use the parking lot makes a lot of sense, and because we're usually done by that time. As to the rest of the day, with respect to 9 a.m. to sunset, I think that leaving the gate open seems like an option. I have experience in the past where if that gate is open, there will be some random folks during the day who will kind of come in there, and that's there's not much place to turn around. I mean, I'm talking about not people who are rowers or not familiar with the park. They just turn in that driveway. So there might need to be some signage to explain or something, so you don't have more traffic in there where you have people wandering about. So I think I think what you proposed as an alternative to what was previously approved by the PRC in terms of the over 15-foot car topping rule is a good change.
Okay, but you're comfortable with being able to car top the shells in there from sunrise to 9 o'clock and being out of there by 9 o'clock. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm speaking for myself. I'm a former board member of OLRA, but I'm just a private citizen rower now, I think most of the people that car top that shouldn't be a problem for them. I think the evening time or the afternoon evening time is something probably needs some more discussion in terms of how to work out what they would actually do in terms of using that other driveway. Would they need to still do the drop the boat off by the boathouse and then take the car around and park it, or is there a vision for some sort of probably need some increased space to be able to park cars that are car topping after 9 a.m. in that area, so that you don't have to go in and out the driveways multiple times. Yeah. Obviously, there's more traffic in the evenings going by Haines Park.
Right. Chris, I hear what you're saying, that the idea of car topping after 9 a.m. was really because at times the parking lot, it's a very small parking lot, can be full, especially I think on Tuesdays and Thursday nights when there's the adult rowers or master rowers, or whatever you guys call that program, that parking lot is jammed. And as a safety consideration, I think you guys, of course, are really responsible to do that. But it's you know, the cars are everywhere. You got to put the boats down somewhere. I see that sometimes when the car toppers take the boats in, they have, like, I don't know what you call them, little sawhorses kind of, and they have covers, and they just kind of leave it on a part of the parking lot or put it on the grass around there. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid, because as you are well aware, between the boathouse and Route 1, there's a pretty sizable chunk of grass. So that if you were to leave all this stuff there, it wouldn't really affect any of the Old Lyme residents using the park for recreational aspects. And I hope that you're willing to compromise and try what we just proposed, such that car top in the morning in the main parking lot. I mean, you guys do a remarkable job when the trailers come in there to be able to turn the trucks and trailers around in order to get the boats out or backing it in. Certainly a car that's 15 feet long would have no problem just kind of turn a rear end towards some of the area there that's away from the basketball court, and then coming around and then parking in the main parking lot. And we're really hopeful that you'll give it a shot and then see how it goes. And if there's certain...
I think, Bob, that if the gates are open and it's not typical. I don't usually row bicycle in the evenings, but just say that I was unable to go in the morning and was going to row it Tuesday or Thursday evening, I wouldn't have a problem parking in basically where the old basketball court was. As long, the gates open and come in there and park there and take my boat down and have that down in that area. I don't see that as a real issue. It's unlikely that it's going to be beyond capacity with people who were car topping boats at that time, just given the numbers that we have at this point. I don't know if there are others from the rowing club who comment on that.
Yeah, I'm just asking. No, I was just, at this point, can we wait for anybody else from rowing to have public comment about it? At this point, Chris, something like that we will also have to go over with the superintendent Ian, because there are agreements that were legal agreements that were done between District 18 and the town, and in those legal agreements it says that the only place that people can park their cars is in the main parking lot, because I guess that was discussed way back when too, about having cars parked over there. So I hear what you're saying, but that's we can bring that up when we talk to the superintendent, but I think that if it could work out the way it's been proposed, we would like you guys to give it a shot, because and I think also, as you said, that most of the cars that car top rowing shells come in the morning. Isn't that, you said that, I think?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so we're hoping that everybody can try to work together on this to see if those ideas would work. And then if it doesn't work for some reason, we could reevaluate them and see what we could come up with. Okay?
Sure, and I appreciate having taken the message that I sent to the commission and the selectmen, taking that into consideration in the revision of the over 15-foot car topping rule. So thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you for spending the time to talk to us. Okay, now, the next part of our agenda, would any of the commissioners have any comments about what was just discussed between mostly, I guess, Chris and I? Any commissioner have a comment?
No, I don't.
Nothing for me.
I don't.
Okay, all right. Okay, not hearing any more comments. Let's see if we can all make this work. Okay? All right, now the next part of the agenda is the updated statement concerning 176 Boston Post Road by Greg Hack on behalf of the Blood Street Partners. Before I let Greg have the floor or the telephone conference call here and talk to us. I just want to say that I want everybody to be aware that when we had the May 15th summary, the May 15th meeting, the Park and Rec Commission is under no obligation to accommodate requests for usage of Haines Park by commercial or private entities, although we're open to reviewing proposals. So we had that informal meeting as a courtesy, and we hope that at least from this point forward we can be a little more constructive about what may work for all parties. Now, at a future PRC meeting, we will also be discussing how well the existing park policies and rules are being followed to ensure the safe, fair, and responsible sharing of Haines Park facilities by all users, including Old Lyme residents, Region 18 high school rowers, and the Old Lyme Rowing Association Community Rowing Program. Now, please, anybody that's out there that if you haven't read them, please refer to the Park and Rec website to see that on that site we have posted the 2017, we posted a policy for Haines Park that I think everyone should read to get an idea of what we had proposed at that time, and we plan to update that probably at the next meeting or when we hear more feedback about how things are going. Okay, so at this point, Greg, you submitted a written statement that we will include attached to these minutes, and Greg, what would you like to say?
All right, terrific. Thank you, Bob. Hopefully everybody's doing okay and is staying safe. Let me say, can you hear me okay?
Yep, fine.
Yep. Okay. Let me say, first of all, I really do appreciate that you invited me and the others to the meeting on May 15th, and that you did indeed follow up with me to speak a little bit today. I hope that everybody has had an opportunity to review the one-page statement that I sent out yesterday. I think, I tried to put that out there in the context of being collegial and constructive and professional and working together going forward. We have certainly, I'm speaking on behalf of the 6 owners right now, we understand the concerns that were raised by the Parks and Rec Commission, and we understand clearly that a number of the elements of the plan that we put forward are not going to be agreeable to the PRC, and we get that. And we are willing, going forward, to work with you closely to try to find something that hopefully will work for everybody. I really do appreciate what you just said and what the commission just agreed to in terms of changing the 15-foot car topping rule. I think that's a great development, and I would think that that doesn't directly affect our project at all. But, I think the sunrise to 9 a.m. solution or compromise is an excellent one. I'll just say, to give some thought to whether the gate should stay open or not after 9 o'clock. As Chris mentioned, there are sometimes folks who come down in there, and I've seen cars and trucks drive down into that boathouse driveway when the gate is open. So it may be a consideration not to leave that open the rest of the day after 9 o'clock. Just something for you folks to think about. So in my statement, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Again, I'm assuming that you all have read it. I hope that we'd be able to rescind that car topping rule from the April 15th meeting, which you have effectively done, and thank you for that. And I'm also hoping that you consider revising or undoing your portaging statement or making some type of compromise so, again, we can try to see how that works in the same spirit as you just said with the car topping rule. So that's one thing I think would go a long way if we could make some traction on that. It's probably not the proper forum for us to go into a lot of minute detail about what type of plan might work, here, particularly on the phone. But I'm hoping that we can create a subcommittee, an ad hoc committee, so we can work together collaboratively to figure out what kinds of things will be of interest to us in our little group and what will be acceptable to Parks and Rec.
Well, Greg.
So that's basically where we are.
Greg, John Flower. Were you
Hi,
able?
John.
Were you able to talk to the neighbor about that 10-foot strip? Because that certainly relieves a lot of problems.
I believe that Mike Ferguson has written them a letter. I do not believe he has heard back from them at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, that would go a long way to reconsidering a pathway to.
Right, because it gets you right down to the parking lot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
So
in the meantime, and again, knowing, I think, Tim, you're on the call too?
Yes.
First Selectman?
Right.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you had to say at the Selectmen meeting on Monday night. I really thought the spirit was excellent. And, you suggested you thought there could be a way that we would be able to Portage boats through there, assuming we did it collaboratively with Parks and Rec and with particular time constraints. So that is absolutely something that we would love to consider. And as I mentioned in the note, that we could have a specific pathway noted that's as far away as possible from the existing playscape, knowing that there's, I think it's roughly 35 feet there, and as far away as possible from the beach, and we could actually go into the main parking area if need be. So we're hoping if we could get some traction on that right now, that would be huge. And then if we could set up some time for us to get together and talk about other things that we might include or not include in a building project going forward, that would be a wonderful thing, I think.
Greg, it's Bob. I like the comment about setting up a committee to work with you guys. Although we're very willing to hear about your ideas going forward. That I just want to tell you that for all the sports. Hello, is anybody? It's ended the call. Hello.
What?
Oh, okay, no.
You broke
Still there, Bob?
No, yeah, the machine went wild for a second, and it said end. Okay, I just want to let you know that like for the soccer, lacrosse, whatever, every one of the sports organizations or clubs typically comes to the Park and Rec meetings in order to discuss whatever they're proposing. So I don't think we haven't done it with anyone else. As I said, we've given a couple courtesies here, but to open up another committee that would involve people from your end, our end, this and that we don't practice that here. What we expect is that anyone that's going to come for a proposal, and as I said before, we would like to review it and discuss it and see if we can do something about it. But typically, even with, as you did in the December meeting after buying the place in June, you came to the Park and Rec, showed us what the proposal is, and of course it is really hard to do that at this time if we're not going to have an open forum when we have to do it over the telephone. But certainly if you have some sort of proposal, why not write it down? Why not have some rough sketches of it, and then we could proceed from there.
I would assume our next meeting would be public, wouldn't it?
I don't know if the next. This is such crazy times. I don't know if we'll have public, but at least if we could have some information prior to discussing it at, say, the next Park and Rec meeting, that would go a long way to help everyone go forward. I think, Greg. What do you think?
Okay, well, we can certainly do that. What I think we would like to avoid is, if we show something and it's shot down, and we show something and it's shot down. So, I think it would be helpful if we could have some specific concepts that would be agreeable. Now, you mentioned earlier tonight, and I think you also mentioned on May 15th, you spoke about a number of boats, a very small number, and you suggested that we would use the
walkout basement.
The
walkout basement, or
the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like the thing that would be of most consideration to Parks and Rec. I mean, some of those other things are sort of zoning commission issues, as you discussed, and land use issues. The point that you've made about not being able to take the boats out without crossing the town line. I mean, okay, perhaps that's a valid point, but I would think that the number of boats that we're using, the busyness that will be on site, and those are all things that we've talked about before, even though the structure as proposed was pretty big. we've suggested there would not likely be more than 4 or 5 individuals, if that, using their boats there on any given day, and that in fact the folks that were rowing would be people who will be rowing anyway out of team boats in the boathouse. So we've said that a number of times, that we don't expect this project would increase the actual rowing traffic. So, but anyway, we get your point that you don't want as many boats stored there, so I think we're willing to do that. But I think we would hesitate to go back and forth with a couple of different plans and say that's no good, and do another one, and that's no good. So,
Well, Greg, I think
and that's why I suggested doing the committee so we could have some back and forth.
Okay, John Flower would like to say something, Greg?
John Flower.
Yep.
What scared me initially was the application with the marine facility, which is commercial, and
Right.
24 boats and the large building and this and that. So, just from an objective point of view, if you were an outsider looking at that, that just seemed kind of scary, and it would, as we've said, it would set a precedent. If however you change it around or this and that, if it's a more scaled down, whether it's on paper scaled down or whether it's verbally scaled down in the sense of it's not commercial or whatever, it's just our buds and I.
The partners.
Right, the partners.
Yeah.
It's
just the partners, and then you're not taking money because from others that store boats there, because that would be considered commercial.
right. Then you get into the commercial issue,
Right.
and you got to.
Right. So I did note that in one of the bullet points of the letter that I sent yesterday, suggested
Right,
that which it is currently still a private residence, that we would propose continuing to operate that as a private residence, not marine facility. And I do understand, we've been through that, we hashed through that a little bit on May 15th, and that it seems like that is not the way to go. And using this as a private residence for the partners and perhaps a few friends would be something that we would want to do going forward.
Right.
So that for sure is one thing that we would include. And a reduction in the number of boats, we're happy to talk about that. So if we have elements that include that, what else would you foresee would be something you would want to see?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing that I at least would want to see is that that was an okay idea. It probably could be considered if you could get permission from your neighbor to use that 10-foot wide piece of land to get closer to the park property and especially to the parking lot, and then be able to take the boats to the docks. Okay, that's one thing we'd like to see is some sort of communication saying from the owner that that's okay for you guys to use. That would certainly help alleviate the concerns we have about walking these boats through the Haines Park property. The other thing is that at even the December meeting and the May 15th meeting, like we had the one neighbor, Tom, who came over just to find out what's going on over there with these boats being out there and what is being proposed, this and that. I think it's really important that you somehow contact your neighbors in that particular neighborhood, even if legally you didn't have to contact them because they were more than 100 feet away, abutters, so to speak. They're not abutters, they're neighbors, and you want to be a good neighbor. So I think it would be important to get some feedback from your neighbors so that we could feel more comfortable that the neighbors aren't going to maybe mind a scaled down version of this, and that would certainly go a long way if you could get positive statements from them to influence how we may feel about the project too.
All right, the point is well taken. I'll certainly share that with the other owners. But again, so I think this is good progress, Bob. And again, I appreciate your willingness to have us back on here. If there was any way that the commission right now could grant us the right, as of now, to, even if it's just in the morning, in those early hours, just like you did for the car shoppers, enable us to walk through, as we described before, and prove that we can do this safely, that would be so huge, Bob. And I think, well, I'm on the phone, but I would give you a hug about that, maybe at another time. So hope you.
No,
hope
not,
you enjoy the
we're-
show.
I'm staying socially distanced from you, guy.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be so huge, Bob, and I think it would be a great feeling for everyone that we've really made some progress. But we can see, just like you said about the car copy, we can see how that goes,
Well,
and revisit that.
yeah, John's here. John, you want to make a comment?
Well, so what you're saying is right now you have the boats sitting on a rack over there, or a trail, whatever they are. And so without a building or
Yep.
this and that, you would do a similar thing of before 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Do your portaging or whatever.
Yes.
I, as a member at the moment, don't have a problem with that. But what if, when the construction project comes in and the boathouse is built and all of that, that's when I'd like to re-review, from my point of view, your travel plans. Do you see what I'm saying?
Understood.
I have one other question, Greg. At this time, how many boats are you storing in back of 176? What would be the number of boats that you're storing in back of your house?
Right now, I believe there are 6 or 7. Not 100% sure.
Okay, 6 or 7 boats there. Okay, any other commissioner would like to comment about this, please?
I don't have any comments.
It's Brendan McKeever. I think that, and I agree with John, in particular, is, during, I don't want to call it like a trial phase, but especially now, I don't know how busy it is down there, Don. Is it busy down there now? Or
I didn't hear the question.
No, Brendan, Don didn't hear.
Is Haines Park busy now? Is Haines Park busy now or no?
I would say no.
Well, right now, it was closed for a while, so it wasn't busy.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is, in particular, in a non-busy time, if the owners, whether the owner has an LLC or individually, that can be changed very easily one way or another. If they want to move their boats in and out of there, I agree with John, and at the very least, what it does is it'll show, or it's a good test case to see how it'll work out with the townspeople, and if it's an impediment or not, or how it works, and I think it's good. And then moving forward, if, post-COVID, into more busy times, if we have to figure out a way that there's specific routes, specific times, amounts of boats. By the way, Greg, just out of curiosity and just for my own edification, and I'm hearing various things there, how big are these boats? I'm not a rower, so please just educate me on how big these boats are.
Well, that's a good question, and careful, we do a lot of recruiting. So, but the boats are very narrow. They're like 18 inches wide, roughly, and the boats that we store on site are only small boats. They're singles and doubles. The singles are roughly 26 feet-ish. The doubles, 31, 32, 33.
And how many people are needed to carry them?
Generally, for a single, it's 1 person, and for a double, it's 2. And that's actually a good question also in terms of the safety, because although the boats are long, they're light. We're talking like less than maybe 35 pounds for a single. It's all carbon fiber, very high tech, and we carry them on our shoulder at shoulder height. So if you're a 5 foot or 6 foot tall person, it's way up in the air. So even, we've discussed that when we're going to be portaging through there early in the morning, it's rare to have anybody around. But even if there was a small child, it would be well out of their height range, as it were.
Greg, how wide are those outriggers?
The riggers themselves go about 5 feet, 188 centimeters.
Okay, so right
And
where
they can
you're...
be carried either horizontally or vertically. You could tip it vertically, so it would be a narrower window.
Yeah.
Greg, I have one one question and then another possible observation. Do you have liability insurance so that if something bad was to happen on park property by portaging these boats through there, would you be properly insured so the town would not have to suffer anything that unforeseen act that happens here.
I think that's a great and appropriate question, Bob. Yes, we do have, insurance on that. I can certainly look into it further and provide a copy to you to ensure that we have coverage that would be satisfactory. As it turns out, Mike Ferguson is a now retired sort of long-term investment industry professional. So he helped us in getting that when we first bought the place.
Okay, and the second point I have is that we really feel that any boats should only be owned by the owners of the house, the 6 members of the whatever the LLC is called at this point. That maybe you said there's 6 or 7 there. Maybe if you gave us a more concrete answer and to have no more, say, than 8 boats back there, and it would just be owners only that are moving back and forth, and not, you mentioned before you wanted to open it up to some friends. Well, I think that is not the best idea at this point, especially where we are now. But if it was the owners only, maybe say less than 8 boats, and you could provide us with insurance, and then propose on some sort of map where you think it would be safe to portage these boats back and forth. Especially it would be best if you could get that your neighbor's permission to use that 10-foot spot. Then we wouldn't be as worried at all about anything that may happen.
Right.
Understood. So I think that at this point we'd have to get more of this information from you before we can make a decision in order to do that. But if you could tell us how many boats, whatever your insurance policy is, let us take a look at that insurance policy, make sure that you are covered if something bad was to happen on the park, that we could consider it, but only after we get some more information on that. What do you think, John? I mean, because if you can approve all those things, we'd probably be okay to do it at this time before 9 o'clock, early in the morning. Now, the other question I have is that how would the neighbors feel about this? And we'd have to find out, because we'd be able, I think, if we did come to some temporary agreement, we would be able then to rescind this agreement if we start getting some unfavorable reviews from neighbors. That's why I think it's important too for you to contact people, let them know what's going on, because although you guys and myself, I'm up 5:30 every morning. I'm an early riser. Not all the people who live around there are early risers, and we just wonder whether or not by the activity taking place there, this may be looked on favorably or unfavorably by people in that neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. The point is well taken, Bob.
Yes.
And we'll do our best to do that.
Oh, yeah, and I think that what we'd have to have then is some sort of written agreement between the LLC and the Park and Rec to cover the points we just brought up. And then at that time, I think then we could maybe have a meeting and find out whether or not the Park and Rec commissioners, generally speaking, I feel that it's happening early in the morning, that most people on Park and Rec would not be too against it, but we'd have to see. But we need some of this other stuff, and we need to put together a written agreement that if you're going to be portaging the boats over the park, that you have adequate insurance, that it's only going to be for owners only, and that the limit at this time is for, like, say, 8 boats or less. So you can work on getting that information together and then get it to us, and then either I know everybody's raring to go, everybody's frustrated. You're not the only one. Everyone's frustrated and wants to be able to go out and do the things we like to do. But I think the Park and Rec Commission would only be comfortable if we had some of this other information in writing from your LLC.
Bob will be happy to provide that. I think based on what I've heard this evening, some of the commissioners seem to be comfortable allowing us to do this effective immediately. You know, so I think your point, I think you're serving the commission well, saying that we should provide this other information, and we can do that. But I think it would be wonderful if we could, as of this meeting, start to enjoy some of those rights as we did before April 15th. And if you want to give us a date to have that stuff together by that, we can do that.
What do you say, John?
Hey,
want to
Craig.
say something? Oh.
Hey, Craig, it's Tim Gavin. Is there
Hi, Tim.
a way that, hi, how are you? Is there a way that we could get the insurance coverage sheet, like as soon as possible,
Sure.
just so we have that on hand? I think that's kind of a thing that we need to do.
Absolutely.
Have
I would
it
agree with
protected.
him on that.
Yeah.
Just to cover.
Would it be reasonable?
cover it.
Yeah. Would it be reasonable to say then, once you have that document in hand, we could go ahead as described?
Well,
I'm thinking that that's going to be proposed. Bob, I'm thinking that's going to be proposed in this meeting, and it sounds like most of the, it sounds like the members that have spoken are in agreement with that. So
Terrific.
I think we're going to propose that.
Yes, but I still think that the go-ahead should be once we get this information in writing. John, what do you think?
Right, I don't disagree. You could get it to us, you know, if you can get it to our director to review, you can get it to him, I would assume, fairly quickly, the insurance policy.
Yeah, I would think so.
And,
Yep.
you know, after that, but when I was originally talking about it, then when you're doing your construction work and you're designing the large structure or a structure, I would assume we would reevaluate all of this just to, you know what I'm saying? I don't want it to morph into something more
Understood, yep.
than just right now you're just hauling a couple of boats down before 9 o'clock.
Understood, yep. That sounds totally
I
reasonable.
mean, that's my point of view.
So,
Yeah, I think that's.
yeah, Don, you have any
No,
comments?
just,
No?
you can email me or drop off a copy of the insurance form, just like you would if filling out a facilities usage form.
And probably a town
Okay, very
loss
good.
payee.
What?
And we actually, every single person who uses town facilities has to
Town
have
hall
one of
line.
those forms. So in essence, you would be a person utilizing our facilities by coming off your private property and going down onto our facilities, so.
And this is a unique, considering this is very unique to Park and Rec because basically we deal with nonprofit established clubs and other organizations that are not private, and to give some sort of private use of this park without some of these things in written consideration, I think is very important that we have this in writing, and like we said, you could forward this to Don, who would forward us that we could have this, and let me ask Brendan. You're an attorney. Could you take a stab at a very brief agreement that could be possibly used based on what we've been discussing?
Of course, and my thought is too, as I'm listening, is maybe what I can do, and Greg, I'll just throw this by you too, is reach out to Attorney McNamara and see if
perfect.
it's something that he can help in drafting, and then he can get me something which I can then review or go over with him, and then present to the commission, and we can go from there. I'm happy to do that.
That sounds like a wonderful idea, thank you.
Yeah, and I think at this point too, if an agreement is agreed upon, that this of course would be temporary based on what goes on there on this project in the future.
Correct.
And also, hopefully, it would be temporary if you could get permission from your adjacent neighbor there to use that 10-foot swath of property to get over towards the
Right, that solves all the problems. The problems go away, actually, if you can get that 10-foot
We'll
strip.
certainly, we'll continue to pursue that as well.
Okay, so any other commissioner want to weigh in on this?
No.
Nothing for me.
Huh?
May I make a comment? Here, I just wanted, this is Michael Ferguson, and the only comment I'd like to make is Mr. Bugby has the insurance policy, which has got a $2 million limit in his inbox right now.
Okay, that's a good start. Okay, and Brendan.
I told you Mike was an insurance professional.
2 million, that's it?
Yeah, 2 million. But that's nothing these days.
That's right.
I'm only kidding. It's pretty good policy, I guess. Okay, so Brendan.
Maybe to you, John. Maybe
No, I'm only
John.
kidding.
You're
I'm
a
just-
big hitter with.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
No, okay. So Brendan, are you going to work with Greg and you said some McNamara attorney or something?
Attorney McNamara, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
That's who represents the, yep, go ahead.
oh yeah, but who is? I mean, how is he involved in this? Who does he represent?
So Greg, go ahead, you can answer that.
Yeah, he's represents our LLC, Bob. So he drew up our documents and all that
okay.
so forth, and we consulted with him.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. All right. So if you guys,
I believe that Brendan knows him.
yeah,
I do, and we've been in contact about this issue. He reached out a couple of weeks ago in the spirit of compromise, and we've had some good conversations about it. So I actually look forward to working with him.
okay. So you just hold off a little bit more. Let's see if we can get this agreement and that everyone feels comfortable with, and then go from there. Greg, you okay with that?
I think so. Did I hear there was going to be a motion to that effect? Just so that it's reflected in the minutes and we all know where we stand?
Does someone want to make a motion about this, or is this just a consensus issue? Go ahead. So, yeah, is there just consensus on this approach?
I think I can't make consensus. I'm not clear now. Bob, I'm hearing you say one thing. I'm hearing John say another thing. I'm hearing John say that for right now, as long as we have the insurance document, they're starting today, as Greg had asked, we're all right with them taking the votes and going out before 9 o'clock. But I'm hearing you say, Bob, that they need the stuff drawn up by Brendan and Jeff McNamara, and before they can do that. So I'm hearing two different things.
Okay, so that's sort of my point of view, but it makes sense to have these documents. So, other commission members pipe in and give us
I think
your opinion.
we would like to have this document so that if something was to happen, that that everyone is more or less covered, okay, for this, because as I said before, this is all new territory too for what you guys want to do and what our past policies always were. So I think if I remember everything we've talked about, 8 votes or less just for the members of the LLC, the 6 members. Insurance would be necessary. The owners of just the owners of the LLC would be doing this, and that Brendan and Mr. McNamara can work on some sort of agreement, and that we'd also like you to follow up on trying to use that 10-foot strip of property that the neighbor owns, which is next to you, which gains just about access right to the parking lot. I don't know if that necessarily has to be in this agreement at this point, but at least we want you to agree that you're going to pursue that with the neighbor.
Yes, we will. And so just to clarify, so you have the insurance document already that Mike sent, and once you have this very brief legal document agreement from Attorney McNamara, we're good to go.
Once we circulate it and get, weigh in from all the Park and Rec commissioners, and also in this agreement, it should be just for doing this from sunrise to 9 a.m. At this time. Now, because I know sometimes on Tuesday and Thursday nights there's a lot of action there, but we wouldn't want that happening, portaging boats at that time because of Oline residents using the park. Okay?
So again, so you said you'll circulate the document, but then we would we would have a response then from someone that we are good to go. I'm hoping well in advance of the next meeting. I'm thinking over the next week.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah, as soon as you get us this agreement. Okay,
I have one thing to add.
What?
Greg, Don Bugby here, and Mike Ferguson. I received the insurance thing, and if I'm reading it correctly, and if I'm not, please let me know. This is telling me the policy period is June 17th, 2019 to June 17th, 2020. So that's coming up pretty quick to have an updated copy. If I'm reading that right.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, we're going to be
That's around
renewing
the time
it.
we bought.
All right.
Yep, that's when we bought and closed on the property, so it's about to be renewed.
Okay.
so,
And one other thing, I'd like us to, as the committee, to, once this goes through, if something happens in the sense of we get outpouring from other people, I don't expect it, but I want the ability to be able to say, to rescind it.
right, that would be in the agreement somewhere.
Right. As I said,
also.
this is, as Bob said, this is new territory, and I don't expect anything to happen, but who knows? In other words, if we make a motion to do it, then it doesn't mean forever if there's some problems.
Understood.
Right. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to, Brendan, maybe you'll be good at making this motion since you're going to be involved with Mr. McNamara. Could you please make a motion to and so I could ask all the commission members for their input on this. Could you please make a motion for what we plan to do and see if the commission members all agree, or most of them agree at least?
As best I can describe it, I'll make the motion I'll have the authority to engage with Attorney McNamara in an agreement by the owners of the LLC with the Park and Rec Commission to a limited use of town's property so that they can, for lack of a better term, get in and out of the lake under certain terms that are agreeable to all the parties. That's my motion.
Okay, and that would include that only the owners of the LLC would be able to portage the boats, that the insurance policy is updated and sufficient, that there's 8 boats or less in the back of the house, and that, then sunrise to 9 a.m. would be the only time you can do this, and that, and you get us that agreement, we'll circulate it to the Park and Rec members and see if everybody's on board with that, to do this from sunrise to 9 a.m. So, Brendan, can I include that as an addendum to what you just said?
Yes, and just so you know, my notes have 8 boats or less, temporary in nature, freely revocable by either party, not to be recorded. Owners of between the owners of the LLC and the Park and Rec Commission. I suppose you would be the one to sign it as the commissioner, Bob.
Yes.
And then use from sunrise to 9 a.m. That's what I have written down.
Right, and not in the agreement, but Greg, you are agreeing to talk to your neighbor about using that 10-foot strip in back of his house.
Will do.
Okay, all right. I think that's pretty much the motion. So Brendan has made a motion. Would anyone like to second it from the Park and Rec Commission, please?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, Tim, you were the first one, maybe? You'll second it? Okay, any further discussion on that? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, all those opposed? No one? Okay, and anyone abstaining? Okay, no one abstaining? Okay, I think we got somewhere, Greg, and we're slowly moving forward.
Thank you very much, Bob, and everybody. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Okay, all right, now we're on to the next item, and that would be any other new business, commissioners, that you would like to discuss. And that motion passed unanimously, by the way. Okay, any other new business? Not hearing any.
No?
We'll move on then to public comment. And please, whoever's on public comment, and please identify yourself, where you live, and then go ahead and have 2 or 3 minutes to say what you would like, okay? All right, so it's open to public comment now.
This is Candace Fuchs. I live in Old Lyme, and I'm the president of Old Lyme Growing Association. And first of all, I just want to thank the commission for their cooperative effort this evening. I think we made a lot of progress, and I'm really happy with where we've ended up. And I want to thank everybody involved for cooler heads prevailing and moving into a cooperative space. So it shows a lot of hope. And I think the next step is to reopen the boathouse for use. And as Bob mentioned, I put together a package which describes protocols that we've developed and approvals from the state. And I shared, based on instructions from the selectmen, I shared that with David Robert, Director of Emergency Services. I will send that package to Bob and Don, and I'll look forward to discussing it in more detail and getting the boathouse open for activity sometime soon.
Okay, Candace, I think just one thing I'd like to add to that is, and we appreciate that everyone is a little bit more positive about everything, and I'm asking, the one thing I didn't see the last time was something in writing that says the state approves this type of use for, was it for inside of using an indoor facility or for outdoor, or something in writing that's from the state that says what you proposed was approved by the state?
So I submitted a proposal to the state. It's case number 7654, and they came back and they said that actually we were approved as a recreational facility, and that the state had already opened recreational facilities such as tennis, as you mentioned earlier, and stand-up boarding and kayaking, and so we fell under that umbrella and we were approved, and I have that email which I will forward to you as a PDF.
Well, that would be great to forward something in writing from the state on that. Okay.
They also provided a seal that we can display that indicates that we're approved.
Okay, yeah, that would be great to have all that in writing for us. And now, because you were talking about limited activity, I believe just adults, after tomorrow, we may be sending out something on Park and Rec website after Tim and I and Don agree to a written proposal that was discussed tonight, but hasn't been officially in writing yet or anything, that we want all the leaders of the various sports organizations to contact Don Bugbee to make sure that he is aware of, everyone understands the rules that have been approved at this time. And we will also expect you to make sure that Don knows exactly what you're doing at this time for your limited approach to the rowing activities, and that I think that would be very good, not only for you, but I think Don's going to notify all the presidents of the different organizations that the park, these parks are open, but under these circumstances. Correct, Don?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I've already talked to like soccer and lacrosse, baseball. I haven't got anything from them formally yet, but I will request that in writing tomorrow morning. And I just recently received the UK soccer folks protocol for their camps too, so we'll be going over that tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Okay, how's that sound, Candace?
Don, I'll send you I think you've already seen the package that I prepared, but I'll send it to you again tonight.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to say something? Public. No? Not hearing anything? Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is Glenn.
Okay?
Mary Ellen.
Okay, Mary Ellen, you're seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Anyone abstain? No? Okay. It's 6:30, I think, according to this thing. Yeah, so we're adjourning, and I'd like to thank everyone for participating under these crazy and difficult circumstances. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Good meeting.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye, all.
Bye.
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 Yep.
Okay. Let me see. Wait. Time out. Let me see if I can turn this thing off now. You press that down.
I don't know.
Okay. Wait.